Hello there, it's Brodie McLeod again, coming to you from Signet Qstoke, room 15, where I've been since the beginning of August. Well, I've been in several different rooms. I've moved rooms twice because I had some outlets of aggression against some inanimate objects. But I'm going to do a little post today about Sexual Abuse Awareness Month. For the last couple of years, I've been doing a lot of investigative work into what I've perceived to be quite a prolific and widespread child sex trafficking network, which has affected a lot of innocent children and also older women about my age. And it's been really difficult sort of trying to negotiate what's in law termed in the UK as an accessory after the fact. So some people have been involved in these network of crimes, which I hope aren't true and I hope have no basis in reality, but that I've been sort of given no choice and a huge, debt of kind of exemplified sort of and certified motivation to have to investigate. And I haven't done very well. On the one hand, in a way, I have done quite well. If you have a look what Google says, Sexual Assault Awareness Month is an annual campaign to raise public awareness about sexual assault and educate communities and individuals on how to prevent sexual violence in the United States, which is observed in April. Today is April the 9th. I've just had my depot injection of paliperidone into my right buttock. There's the sticker, and let's peel it off just for fun. Oh, it's difficult to get these stickers off. There you go. Don't know if you can see the hole and the needle went in. But that's the medicine I'm on to stop me from being paranoid and delusional and crazy. You can see there's a little bit of my blood on there. That's available for a sale if anyone wants anything. This is the tray that the depot came in, the paliperidone. I asked if I could have the box to make a YouTube video, but they said they had to keep the box for ordering new ones. And I said, can you not just write down, I think it's the name's like Epsilon or something like that, the brand name of this paliperidone, 150 milligram depot I'm on. But no, they said that they needed the box to reorder it the next time. I just put a post on Facebook, and it's about the kind of offence and contemptible, rebellious attitude that people take towards kind of accusations that they might be involved in facilitating the crime of sexual abuse or sexual assault, sex trafficking. And in truth, almost all of these networks of organised crime and serious organised crime involve lots of people who facilitate and micromanage and camouflage and obfuscate and are involved in this network of really unpleasant, harrowing, emotionally scarring crimes. And I've done my level best to put my life on the line and sacrificed a lot of time and energy and made some progress in trying to help people who are suffering from sexual abuse and sexual assault. It might be that I'm completely wrong, but what I just put on Facebook is what I'm going to read to you. So I won't read you any AI today. I used to work at a soup factory called Tideford Soups. It's on my bio profile probably somewhere. See your about info, all the places I've worked. Thrive, LWC, telephone fundraiser, food production assistant at Tideford Organics, 2007. I don't even know if the year's right on that. But anyway, I'll read you what I wrote and we'll go on from there. There's one thing that really pisses people off. It's being accused of being a paedophile. I've been investigating institutional child sex trafficking for the last few years. The nature of the crime has involved a large network of people, many of whom, although they've never actually touched any children, have done their best to facilitate, protect and enable the people who supply young, vulnerable children to sick and depraved degenerates. For a long time, I worked at a soup factory. never actually touched any vegetables. All I did was meticulously stick the stickers on all the pots, put the date labels on the top, wheeled them into the chiller and packed them carefully into cardboard boxes with the appropriate labels and packed them onto pallets for collection and delivery. But don't you call me a soup chef. Don't you dare insinuate, infer, or in any way implicate me in the production or manufacture of any kind of vegetable-based liquid food product. Because, I never touch the actual vegetables myself. I just stuck the stickers on the pots and put the date labels on and then wheeled them into the chiller, carefully packaged them into pallets for collection. Without us in the packing room, did I mention we never touched the soup or chopped any vegetables or had anything to do with any raw food products purchased from organic wholesalers intended for the production of delicious, nutritious soups, the business would not have been able to operate. It's as simple as that. As small cogs in a big machine, everyone is universally as responsible for being what's known in UK law as accessories after the fact to any crime or organised crime or network of criminal activity as those at the revolting coalface of the bastard locomotive of emotional scarring and abject suffering. For anyone that's been involved in state-sponsored institutional child sex trafficking or abuse or sexual humiliation or any of other crime that I might have gathered evidence to implicate or suggest or prosecute against, I think it's time for you to take stock of the role that you played in the harrowing and tragic story that unfolded. I don't agree with collective punishment, but I do agree with trying to protect innocent women and children from vicious, reproachable and utterly contemptible individuals who've made an excellent living out of facilitating harrowing and unforgivable crimes. I'm not necessarily calling you a paedophile, and by the same measure, don't you for an instant, for a fucking nanosecond, call me a soup chef, because I never touched any of those fucking vegetables. Capiche? There's a picture of the soups. I get a bit emotive and emotional when talking about these subjects. I said to somebody a little while ago that sort of in jest that I'd spent about 500 million quid on a special prison for people who've been involved in sex trafficking and sexual assault and institutional abuse that I've been investigating since sort of like 2021 when I became aware that that was happening, and that's not true. So please don't worry about anything other than going to a normal prison where you belong if you have been involved, because that's what I'm going to do my level best to try and achieve. It feels a bit cruel to persecute people who are ill. I think there's like two different types of sex offender. You've got sex offenders who will just kind of form an orderly queue and will just fornicate with anything that has an orifice. And, that's really not because they're ill or because they need love or rehabilitation. It's just because they're heartless, cold, insensitive criminals who just don't care about the consequences of their actions. And, there's no amount of tears or struggling or wriggling or begging or pleading that's going to stop them from exacting their will to gird their loins. But there's another type of person who is like not very well, who maybe a lot of people who are involved in sexual abuse, in committing sexual abuses, were abused themselves, and they've got a kind of a warped sense of hierarchical intimacy, and they don't really understand how to express love, and they don't have the same sense of like wanting to have a healthy relationship or being able to have a healthy relationship. And I don't agree with people who want to be violent or take out kind of any sort of exacting of revenge or persecution against people who have had a really hard life where they've been abused themselves and unfortunately have got an illness. I think that just like psychopaths and sociopaths, or as they call it now in mental health treatment, people with antisocial behaviour disorder, shouldn't, I'm not saying they shouldn't be persecuted or held responsible for their actions or prosecuted, but I do think there's an element of reprieve where you've got kind of perpetrator A who is just much like a sociopath or a psychopath, kind of devoid of emotion, devoid of remorse or compassion, just doesn't care. They just want to get their rocks off, and these are typically kind of often gang related in my experience, and it's a really harrowing and vicious crime. And like putting this on YouTube, it's difficult because it's a really sensitive and unpalatable topic, and it is very difficult for anybody who's been the victim of sexual assault to recover and to look at content on the internet which openly discusses potentially, like I'm saying, that there might be one graphic of people who are less culpable or less responsible. Might be very difficult for people to kind of comprehend or come to terms with, and I could be totally wrong, but that's the way I see it. I think there's people who are ill and people who are evil, and both of them should be held to account. Both of them should be prevented from being anywhere near, young men or women, children or adults, if they're guilty of not having the necessary integrity and compassion, basic human dignity, to refrain from kind of letting their carnal urges get the better of them. And also those people who just work at the administration desk, who just man the phones and send emails and guard the doors of the brothels where these things go on, and never actually do anything. A bit like I never touched any vegetables at Tideford Soup ever. Like I never chopped a single onion, but I was involved in the production of soup. And if soup was a crime, if organic soup was illegal, and pesto and bolognese sauce and ambrosia rice pudding, then I'd be prosecuted as an accessory to the production of those soups. But they're not illegal. They're very delicious. I recommend you buy them, and I don't want to sort of taint a really good ethical business with an excellent product, who I hope are still producing down at the industrial estate in Totnes, within a short skateboard ride to the local skate park, where I was actually sacked for smoking cannabis at work, because they're a brilliant company, and I'm not in any way trying to associate or kind of, I'm using the metaphor or simile of Tideford Foods as a point of reference. But no one's getting taken to a gulag, but I'm going to try and put as many people into an environment where the public and innocent women and children are safe and protected, whether they're gang banging, remorseless, unsympathetic, cold and clinical sex offenders, or whether they're damaged, abused and neglected, twisted souls who've grown imperfectly into people who can't display affection and love in a healthy way, and could benefit greatly from psychological treatment, dialectical sort of behavioural therapy, cognitive behavioural therapy, and maybe some healthy pornography even, to encourage them to have healthy relationships with adults where they have a balance of power and they don't need to feel that they're in control or that they're sort of superior. I don't know, I don't know how the brains tick. But that's 15 minutes of video for the 9th, and if you know anybody that's been the victim of sexual assault, then talking about it is really difficult, but something which, if you could try to do in a compassionate, loving, tactful, sensitive, sympathetic way, might help them out. And if you know of anybody that's been involved in child sex trafficking, then be very careful, because they're very powerful, these people, a lot of the time. They are very, they carry a lot of clout. But if you can, as long as it doesn't put your life in danger, and maybe, like me, even if it does, you might feel that you're compelled to try and do whatever Martin Luther King says, if you're in the right, you can't be too radical. And if you're in the wrong, you can't be too conservative. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. And I'd just like to send my best wishes to everybody who has helped me to try and corroborate and collaborate with them to amass evidence, and be it circumstantial, be it sort of quite pithy, some of it. There is a hard drive which is full of evidence, and there is an SD card which has got a lot of evidence on it too. I don't have any of those things at the moment, but I just wish everybody all the best. And for those people who are guilty, whether you're guilty because you're a defective, damaged person, or responsible because you're a defective, damaged person, or responsible because you're just one of those evil men or women who just doesn't give two fucking monkeys, then you should be held responsible too. But just to be clear, I won't be sending anybody to the gulag. That was just a kind of an expression of my feelings on the matter during this Sexual Abuse Awareness Month. Have a good afternoon, and make sure you keep your relationships healthy, consensual, and age related, however you express love, whatever gender you identify as. Make sure that the people that you do share intimacy with are consenting, old enough, and are hopefully as divine, special and beautiful and individual, unique as your good self. And if you know anybody that's doing anything wrong, then do whatever you can to try and help out the victims, because we've all got a responsibility to do that. Cheers.